There's something in the mail from my mother.
It's in a high-end brand box. I wonder what it is. To my surprise, a high-end brand present arrived for my daughter from my mother-in-law. Ah, it's a school bag. As soon as I saw what was inside, I immediately threw it into the backyard. Then I set the school bag on fire and burned it.
Hey, what are you doing? Mom went to the trouble of buying it. You should pay for it.
I calmly told my furious husband. Did you see what's inside? Your mom is the worst. My name is Mika, a 37-year-old office worker. I've been married to Trevor for 8 years.
We're already 29 and we should get married before turning 30. You used to say you wanted to decide on marriage in your 20s, right, Mika?
Huh? You remembered that? That was something I said in a casual conversation when I was a university student. We were hanging out with a close group of friends, just having a light-hearted chat. Trevor remembered it. We didn't date during our student days. We were truly good friends, but we never developed any romantic feelings. However, things changed after becoming working adults. At that time, I was working for a company that could be called a shady company, where I was physically and mentally exhausted. I barely had a day off, maybe once a week if I was lucky. Looking back, I realized it was a clear violation of labor laws. But back then, I didn't even have the mental capacity to consider taking legal action against the company. I was grinding away at work, feeling like a lifeless shell every day. Then one day, Trevor came to my workplace.
Hey, Mika.
Trevor, what are you doing here?
And didn't you hear? You should have a full day of appointments with the sales department today.
Wait, huh? Trevor, were you working at that company?
Hey, don't tell me you've forgotten, Mika. That's just terrible.
Sorry, I'll guide you to the meeting room right away. And then Trevor and I started discussing work seriously at first. But once the conversation reached a certain point, he invited me to have lunch.
It's lunchtime, so let's grab a bite. I'll ask your boss if we can continue the meeting.
Huh? Okay. And after he talked to my boss, he took me outside the company and opened the car door.
All right, we're heading to the beach right now.
What? It's not lunch.
I bought sandwiches for both of us from a famous sandwich shop before we came here, so we're all set.
But what about work?
You got permission from your boss, and most of the work-related discussions are already sorted out, so it should be fine. Besides, I set up the sales talk specifically for this.
What do you mean?
I was worried that you were going through a tough time, so I came to help.
Trevor. A tightly wound thread inside me suddenly snapped. I was about to cry as hard as I could, but he said,
If you cry here, it'll look like I'm going to do something bad to you, Mika.
So I stopped myself. He told me to cry at the beach, and I burst into laughter. After that, we went to the beach. We listened to the sound of the waves, admired the sea, and enjoyed delicious sandwiches. It had been such a long time since I relaxed like this, and it felt like my troubled heart was slightly healed.
Don't push yourself. When you're going through a tough time, just say it. I'll always listen.
Yeah. At that moment, I think if he hadn't helped me, my heart would have broken. I decided to quit the company and change jobs. Thanks to that incident, Trevor and I quickly became closer and started dating. And after dating for about 3 years, we decided to get married. I believed that with him, I could have a happy married life. Of course, I was very happy when we were together, but in this marriage, there was quite a troublesome presence for me, and that was my mother-in-law. Trevor was her only son, so my mother-in-law doted on him. That's why she hated me from the start when I came to marry him. I don't consider you as my daughter-in-law, just so you know. That was the first thing my mother-in-law said to me.
Hey, Mom, what are you saying? That's rude all of a sudden.
Although Trevor warned my openly antagonistic mother-in-law about her behavior towards me, she continued to glare at me. And even after that, my mother-in-law found ways to treat me unpleasantly. What kind of wedding ceremony are you planning? Explain it properly. My mother-in-law forcefully asked me about the wedding plans, saying, "Oh, it's totally unacceptable. Your sense of style is just lacking." My mother-in-law belittles the wedding plans which Trevor and I have come up with. I try to communicate that it's not just my opinion, but Trevor is also involved in the planning process. She wouldn't listen when I said things like, "You're ruining the good ideas he has." And suddenly she started nitpicking and trying to change our wedding plan. Luckily, I managed to get Trevor to stop his mother's rampage, so we were able to have the wedding according to the plan we had come up with. I had been troubled by my mother-in-law's behavior even before getting married, and it continued to be the same after we got married. Mom, what's going on? You come home from work so late. I'm tired of waiting. Surprisingly, my mother-in-law was waiting for me in front of the house. What happened? Why did you come all the way to my house? I came to check if you're doing your household chores properly. Huh? Oh dear, the laundry isn't done. I was planning to do it on my day off when I have more time. I don't need excuses. And the room is not clean either. Please, don't just barge in without permission. Didn't I say I came to check? I don't need your checks. Please leave. You're causing trouble. What? You're so insolent for someone who's a daughter-in-law. Do you think you can get away with treating me like this? I'll tell Trevor about it. Being treated like this by my own daughter-in-law. Saying that, my mother-in-law angrily left. I sighed and explained the situation to my husband when he came home.
My mom is unbearable. I'll talk to her myself.
My husband said that and warned my mother-in-law, but she became even more furious and called me. How did you manage to manipulate Trevor? I would never say anything bad about myself. Please, stop this. Why do you hold so much animosity towards me? Well, it's because you're not suitable for Trevor. That's for my husband to decide. It's not up to you. You really infuriate me. Be more like a daughter-in-law should. Saying that, my mother-in-law hung up the phone without permission. Her idea of being a daughter-in-law must be someone who blindly obeys her, but I will never bow to her demands. I've gained the strength to never yield to injustice from my experience working at a demanding company. So no matter what my mother-in-law does or says, I won't give in. It seemed that my mother-in-law was getting increasingly frustrated because I didn't back down. It seems she was caught yelling on the phone by my father-in-law and received a scolding. Later, my father-in-law came to apologize to me, and he asked me to report if my mother-in-law causes any more trouble or harassment. I felt grateful that my husband and father-in-law were on my side. Sometime later, I found out that I was pregnant. My husband was overjoyed to learn that we were expecting a child.
So, I'm finally going to be a father. I need to work even harder now.
Seeing my husband's joy made me happy too. Of course, we informed my in-laws about the news. I didn't want to have any involvement with my mother-in-law, so my husband handled the communication with them. According to my father-in-law, my mother-in-law was also happy and congratulated us. Though I had my doubts if my mother-in-law was genuinely happy, my husband and I decided to visit my in-laws with a baby after giving birth. Oh, what a cute baby. She resembles Trevor, so she'll grow up to be beautiful. My in-laws were very delighted to have a granddaughter. For now, it seemed like my mother-in-law was in a good mood, which was a relief. I thought she might say something to criticize me, but she didn't say anything in particular. She seemed to be in high spirits, seeing her first grandchild. From that point on, my husband and I continued to interact with my in-laws while being cautious. Of course, there were no problems with my father-in-law, but I had to be careful because my mother-in-law might cause some trouble if I let my guard down. In this way, we managed to live our daily lives without any major issues. But events have a way of happening when you least expect them. It was around the time when our daughter Lisa started elementary school.
Looks like something arrived from my mom.
My husband, who handled the delivery, came back with a cardboard box in his hands. It seems like it's addressed to Lisa. When my husband and I opened the cardboard box, we found a large and expensive-looking package inside. It's in a luxury branded box, but I wonder what it is. To our surprise, it was a luxury brand gift from my mother-in-law to our daughter. Why in the world would she give my daughter, who is only 6 years old, luxury brand goods? When I opened the box, there was a girl's school bag inside.
So this is a present from Mom for Lisa, huh? Hey Lisa, Grandma sent you a gift.
Oh, it's a school bag. Our daughter came out of her room and was delighted to see the gift. It seemed that my mother-in-law was kind to her granddaughter. I need to thank her later. That's what I thought, but suddenly I felt something was off. I had a strange feeling, so I decided to examine the school bag. What is this? As soon as I saw the contents, I immediately threw it into the yard. I took out a watering can and collected the fallen leaves in the yard. Then I set the school bag on fire and burned it.
Hey, what are you doing?
My husband widened his eyes and rushed towards me.
Mom went through the trouble of buying it for us. Even if you don't like her, this is going too far. Practice some self-control.
I calmly replied to my furious husband. Did you see what was inside? Your mother is despicable.
Huh?
I extinguished the burning school bag with water from a hose. There's something that looks like a razor blade in the shoulder pad area.
What?
If Lisa had happily carried the school bag as it is, she would have gotten injured.
No way, my mom wouldn't do such a thing.
I had a feeling something was off. I've never heard of a luxury brand making school bags. She probably wanted to delay the discovery of the razor blade by diverting attention with an expensive item. Maybe my mother-in-law didn't think it through that much, but either way it's unforgivable.
Yeah, you're right.
Angry and trembling, my husband and I headed towards my in-laws' house.
Oh, Trevor, what's going on? You came out of the blue. There's something I want to ask you too, Dad.
Saying that, my husband and I entered my in-laws' house.
Mom.
Oh, Trevor, how nice of you to come. Did you come to play today? It's a pity that Mika is here too, but I'm glad you came. It seemed like my husband thought my father was just going along with it without knowing about the school bag incident.
What did you do, Mom?
Huh?
I'm talking about the school bag.
Oh, it arrived.
What's this about the school bag, Trevor? Dad, you didn't know either. Well, I guess that makes sense. If you knew, you would have definitely stopped it and gotten angry. What happened? Mom put the school bag inside a luxury brand box and sent it to us. But there was a razor blade inside the shoulder pad part of the school bag. What? Why did you try to hurt Lisa, Mom?
When my husband asked that, my mother-in-law smirked and laughed. Well, the fact that she's not here means my plan was successful. It's a simple story. It's because our granddaughter has grown to have a face identical to her mother's, my daughter-in-law.
What?
If Lisa had resembled you, Trevor, of course, I would have loved her. But seeing that woman over there who looks exactly like her infuriated me. That's why I aimed for an opportunity to hurt her. Upon hearing my mother-in-law's words, both my husband and I trembled with disbelief.
Are you kidding me? I never thought you, Mom, could be such a twisted person. Even if you dislike Mika as your daughter-in-law, it's insane to try to harm your little granddaughter.
My husband shouted angrily, but my mother-in-law remained unfazed. I don't regret it. It's all that insolent daughter-in-law's fault. That terrible wife who took Trevor away from me deserves to suffer. I hope she experiences a painful lesson. Saying that, my mother-in-law laughed. I was desperately trying to restrain myself from lashing out. Enough already. Are you out of your mind? Say whatever you want. I don't regret anything. It's your carelessness that caused harm to your own daughter. My mother-in-law must have assumed that Lisa was injured. Unfortunately, Lisa isn't injured. Huh? I immediately burned that backpack, and Lisa is currently staying at my parents' house. What? I can't believe it. What have you done? My mother-in-law began to get agitated.
That's our line. What the hell are you doing, Mom? Trying to hurt our precious Lisa for a ridiculous reason? We will never forgive you.
The plan failed, and my mother-in-law bit her lower lip in frustration. At that moment, my father-in-law spoke up.
Do you understand what you've done? You're trying to hurt your own precious grandchild. I will never forgive you. We're getting a divorce right away.
Divorce? Wait a minute, please.
Shut up. I told you before that if you cause any major problems again, we're getting a divorce.
If you divorce me now, I'll be all alone.
I don't care. What you were trying to do is a crime. I can't live with a criminal.
Finally, after being shouted at by my father-in-law, my mother-in-law seemed to realize the gravity of her actions. Mika, Trevor, I'm sorry. I've done something unforgivable.
Mom, you're completely out of your mind. A sane person wouldn't do something like that. We're cutting ties with you.
Trevor? My mother-in-law slumped down on the spot. Afterwards, she was forcibly expelled by the father-in-law. Since the relatives had already been informed of the mother-in-law's outrageous actions, no one was there to help her. Completely isolated, it seems that my mother-in-law is living a lonely life in a cheap, rundown apartment. We have informed our relatives that if my mother-in-law comes near us even a little, we will call the police. My mother-in-law seems frightened and hasn't contacted anyone. On the other hand, our visits to the in-laws have become easier now that my mother-in-law is gone. My father-in-law is happy to see his granddaughter, and our daughter is very fond of him. We hope to continue living happily as a family from now on. Trying to harm a young girl like that? Isn't that clearly a crime? It's just beyond comprehension. Such abnormal behavior leaves me speechless. Anyway, it's a relief that your daughter wasn't injured. Please, continue to cherish each other and enjoy the happy days together. Thank you for watching until the end. If you liked it, please subscribe to our channel. Now, let's meet in the next video.
It was really out of the blue. One day, my father-in-law, whom I respected so much, suddenly passed away. I really respected my father-in-law both at home and at work. I hope he will continue to be well. He's like the father to me. That's what I thought. But I never thought that I would have to say goodbye so soon. Simon. In the midst of my unceasing grief, I went to the funeral. But there was no seat for me. What? What does this mean? Aren't I supposed to sit with this family? My mother-in-law slowly approaches me. She grimaces and says, "Can a middle school graduate stay away from us? You should there by yourself." At At that moment, my eyes widened. That's terrible. She'd go this far just because she doesn't like me. How much more do you have to harass me? But soon after that, things took a drastic turn when someone made a shocking statement. My name is May. I am 30 years old. I am an ordinary employee of a company. I started working for this company 2 years ago. It was the beginning of my marriage to my husband, Pete. We started dating 3 years ago and got married 2 years ago. Until then, I had been working for another company, but when we got married, I decided to move to a new place and quit my job. However, I would like to work until we have a child. As I was thinking this, my father-in-law, who is the president of the company, made me an offer like this.
May, would you like to work for my company?
What? In your company?
Would love to have a diligent person like you.
Wait a minute. If I join your company, it'll just cause trouble.
Pete tells me you are a good girl who works hard. I trust you. That's why I'm recruiting you.
But the truth is, there was one reason I hesitated to accept my father-in-law's offer. It is that I am not well educated. In a world where college graduates are the norm, I'm a junior high school graduate. It all started when my father passed away in the summer of my third year of junior high school. My mother, who had been a stay-at-home housewife until then, started work. But I guess she must have been reckless. She became physically unable to work full-time. Of course, I had a choice to go to high school with a scholarship. However, even if I had not taken a financial burden, my mother would still have to work to make ends meet. I do not want my mother to be overworked anymore. I just wanted her to rest her body. So I decided to work instead of going to high school. I talked with my homeroom teacher, who helped me to find a job. As a result, I got a job at a local factory after graduating from junior high school. There, I was hired as a clerk, and although it was not much, I was able to earn a certain amount of money every month. Money was needed endlessly to pay for my mother's hospital visits and living expenses. Although my salary was not enough to live a good life, I was still very happy to be able to live with my mother. Later, I met my husband Pete, and we started dating. My mother was hospitalized at that time, but when I told her that I was going to marry Pete, she was happy and cried.
I am happy for you. I've been feeling sorry for depending on you for a long time.
Stop it, Mom. You didn't do anything wrong.
I'm so sorry that I've been sick, that I've taken away your precious time. I'm so sorry. Be happy with Pete.
Mom. Yes, thank you. Happy. My husband also promised my mother that he would make me happy. Perhaps relieved by this, my mother passed away just 1 month after Pete and I got married. I was saddened by the loss of both my parents. Since I had just got married, I spent my days at home alone without a job. I think my father-in-law was concerned about my situation. When I happened to visit my in-laws, he offered me a job at his company. Since my husband originally went to a design school, he's working for a design production company instead of working for my father-in-law's company. I wondered if it was okay for me, a junior high school graduate, to work for my father-in-law's company. My mother-in-law, who was there, talked to me while I was puzzled by my father-in-law's invitation.
May, it's okay. You don't have to take it seriously. You've only graduated from junior high school. It's a big commitment to go to work for a company. No, it's... Even Pete, my son, doesn't work for my company. And just recently became like a stranger to us. It's crazy for you to work for our company.
Oh, of course. I'm sorry.
I hope you understand. I'll tolerate it because Pete chose you. But please, don't embarrass our family.
I didn't expect to hear such a thing after only a month of marriage. But it was my husband who supported me. Pete tapped the desk and stared at my mother-in-law and obviously changed his tone of voice.
Hey, Mom. What are you talking about to May? May is a hard-working and responsible girl. What's wrong, Pete? I'm doing what's best for you and your father's company. Dad will decide what happens with his company. I decide what's mine. It's not your call to make. It's May's decision whether or not she wants to work for Dad's company. Hey, why are you so mad? You don't have to get so mad. Just don't say anything more to May. I'm sure May will adjust quickly at his company. My mother-in-law looks uninterested in my husband's words. I was sorry for making the atmosphere heavy, but I was honestly glad that someone expects something from me like this. After thinking about it for a while, I decided to work for my father-in-law's company. I started out doing menial tasks, but I guess the work suited me well. And gradually I was given all kinds of jobs. The employees were really nice and did not look down on me just because I was a junior high school graduate. My father-in-law also gave me equal opportunities to work as well as other employees. Thanks to him, I was able to grow and develop. 3 years later, I turned 33. Recently, I have been entrusted with a fairly large job, and while I felt sense of responsibility, I also felt a great sense of fulfillment. Then one day, on a day off from work, my father-in-law called me to the office. When I went to the president's office, my father-in-law and some elderly men I did not know were gathered there. Sir, Mr. President, what did you call me here today? I asked my father-in-law feebly. He smiled gently and started talking to everyone. She's my daughter-in-law, and now the mainstay of our company. If anything happens to me in the future, I will leave it to her. Sir, what are you talking about? As you can see, she's still a novice. I'd like to ask for your kind guidance. I look forward to your continued support to our company. Sir? I could only listen, but understanding why the men around me were applauding so warmly. I was told later that all the men were major shareholders of my father-in-law's company. My father-in-law introduced me to all of them, thinking that he could trust me with everything in case something happens to him. Father, are you sure it's me and not Pete? When I asked him fearfully, he nodded his head and said happily, Yes, I am. You were more capable than I had imagined. The other employees have acknowledged it. I've already told the executives about you, and they didn't object. That's because that's what you ordered everyone to do, regardless of my abilities. You need to have a little more confidence in yourself. You are indispensable to this company now. This is what we all agreed on. Dad, thank you. I'm so happy. I had never experienced such recognition from others, and I was so happy that I burst into tears. Receiving such praise from my father-in-law naturally boosted my confidence. When I reported this to my husband, he was so happy as I was. He even thanked me for supporting my father. But a year later, my father-in-law began to complain regularly of back pain. He went to the hospital for a checkup and was found to have cancer. He must have been quite shocked, since he had never had any serious illness and had been in perfect health. After the discovery of the cancer, my father-in-law lost weight rapidly. In no time at all, he was hospitalized, and he could no longer show up at the office. Still, I went to the hospital every day and learned a lot from him about his work. Dad, I found these documents in the president's office. Oh, that. You can ask Mr. Davis, the managing director, for a better understanding. Thank you. And anything else you need to do is in a stack behind my desk. Read through them. And the ones in my desk drawer. Alright, I'll look over everything. Thank you, May. The rest is yours. I've already told my shareholders about my illness, so don't worry. My father-in-law made a lot of preparations so that I would not be in trouble later.
even though his body is in trouble. He has already made arrangements so that the executives can instruct me later. Thanks to him, I was able to acquire knowledge smoothly and contribute to the company more than ever. Also, no matter how busy I was with my work, I was always there to visit my father-in-law every day. On the other hand, my mother-in-law did not show up at the hospital at all. When my husband visited at the hospital, he never saw her. I asked my husband to contact her once, but she insisted that she was busy. What in the world could she be so busy for when she is not working? But rather, she is spending my father-in-law's money for shopping as much as she likes. She has been able to make a living thanks to my father-in-law. And yet, she doesn't even go to visit him, even under such circumstances. As for me, I couldn't believe it. I was getting angry at my mother-in-law, but my position did not allow me to interfere. In the end, my mother-in-law visited my father-in-law only once. A month later, my father-in-law passed away, unexpectedly. I really respected my father-in-law, both at home and at work. If only he continued to be well. He was like a father to me. I had thought so, but I did not expect to say goodbye so soon. I decided to take the lead in the company's work, since the company was going to take care of all the funeral reservations. On the day of my father-in-law's funeral, Dad! I went to the funeral in a state of unceasing grief. But there was no seat for me. What? What does this mean? Aren't I supposed to sit with the family? People from my company are there too. But where am I supposed to sit? My mother-in-law slowly approaches me in my confusion. She grins at me and says, May, you're finally here. I'm sorry, but Simon's family is just me and Pete. What? What do you mean? I mean exactly what I mean. You're just an outsider, right? His family is just me and Pete. My mother-in-law said something that made my husband angry. Mom! But my mother-in-law does not change her expression at all. I was at a loss for words, and she said to me mercilessly, Can a middle school graduate like you stay away from my family? You sit there by yourself. At that moment, my eyes widened. That's terrible. It's my father-in-law's funeral, and this happens. There are a lot of people around here who know him, but she went to such lengths just because she doesn't like me. How much more do you have to harass me? I'm so frustrated. At being treated badly by her, the tears are welling up in my eyes. My husband has tried to warn my mother-in-law many times, but she never seemed to listen to him. I don't want to stay here any longer. I try my best to hold back my tears and leave the venue. At that moment, several familiar figures appeared in front of me. They were the major shareholders whom my father-in-law had introduced to me. One of them starts talking to me. I'm sorry for your loss. We were surprised by the sadness of this. I'm sorry you had to come here in your busy schedule. I'm sure he must have been very happy to have a daughter like you. What? The company is in good hands with you. I look forward to working with you for many years to come. Thank you very much. Likewise. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I realized how much my father-in-law had built up. At the same time, I see my mother-in-law with a frown on her face at the edge of my vision. What does that mean? The company is in good hands with you? One of the major shareholders talked to my mother-in-law, who was muttering in a trembling voice. You're the president's wife, aren't you? You didn't know that. May is the successor. What the hell are you talking about? How can my husband give the company to her? Of course the employees and we agreed to it. No way. You're kidding. Why would you do that for this little... My mother-in-law covers her mouth with her hands when she realized how she was talking. Seeing her like that, the shareholders seemed to have guessed something. They looked at my mother-in-law coldly and said in a casual tone,
I understand now why the president entrusted May with the company. It's because you're like that. What do you mean? I've been supporting my husband. Supported him? The boss told me that it was May who came to visit him every day, not you. That means May was recognized by the boss himself as a member of his family and the company. Isn't that right? My mother-in-law chalked up at the shareholders' comments. She must have been humiliated because her face turned red and she finally left the venue. After that, my husband and I sat together and the funeral ended without a hitch. My mother-in-law did not come back to the venue, probably because of the awkwardness. I found out after the funeral that my mother-in-law had been going to a lot of nightclubs. She withdrew money from my father-in-law's account without his permission. And when my father-in-law found out about it, he did not attack my mother-in-law directly, but just continued to collect evidence. He had already retained a lawyer, and all he had to do was to make a claim and file for divorce. Naturally, my father-in-law did not neglect the procedure to exclude my mother-in-law from his inheritance. Thereafter, she was finally disinherited. And in addition, she had to pay back all the money she had spent at the nightclub. Since my father-in-law has already passed away, the money is to be repaid to his surviving family. My mother-in-law will have to continue to repay the debt to her son. However, it is her own fault that all of this had happened. She took advantage of my father-in-law's money and disrespected me for a long time. She deserves it. On the other hand, I am still working for the company that my father-in-law left to me. I am making efforts day by day so that I will be proud to stand on the top one day under the guidance of the executives. I will make sure that this company that my father-in-law has built will continue to exist. I am sure that I will face many difficulties in the future. Even so, I will never give up. I will do my best for my father-in-law, who believed in me and entrusted me with everything, and for the many people who support me.
You're not qualified as a wife if you're not going to do any house chores. So you better get out of here. My mother-in-law, Jane, who knew nothing, or rather, didn't even try to know, said that to me. I am the one who is supporting this lifestyle. Then my husband turned to me and would say this.
You can stop being my wife now.
My name is Millie. I am a 34-year-old office worker. I have been working really hard all my life. Because of this, I have reached up to this age without meeting anyone at all. Then, a friend of mine recommended me to use a dating app to meet people and potentially find someone who I could get married to. She recently got married, and to my surprise, she met her husband on that dating app. She said that since everyone signs up with the intention of getting married, there are not many people who use the app just for fun. Since my friend had ended up getting married and I was thinking that it was time for me to find a partner too, I decided to use the app. At first, it was really unfamiliar to me since it was my first time using it, but I gradually got used to it and was able to message properly with the people I matched with. In the midst of all this, there was one person with whom I found myself enjoying exchanging messages. That person was a man named Josh. Josh is 2 years younger than me and works for a major company. I continued to exchange messages with him and wanted to meet him. He had also invited me to go out to dinner with him, so I decided to meet him. And I actually met him. He was a very kind and nice man. He has a high income, and he doesn't look that bad. I even wondered why he was using a dating app as well. From there, we hit it off well and continued to date. Then we started going out on the premise of getting married. I had never been in a relationship at all before and was nervous on every date I had with Josh, but he took the lead. We continued to date steadily, and finally, he proposed to me.
Millie, please marry me.
Yes. I was so happy, I guess the peak of my happiness was when he proposed to me. I immediately reported it to my friend who introduced me about the dating app. She was very happy and congratulated me on my marriage. Then, after reporting our marriage and greeting both of our families, we had our wedding ceremony. I never thought I could really get married, so I am very grateful to my friend. Then my husband and I started our honeymoon. My husband asked me to become a full-time housewife, so I quit my job and became a full-time housewife. And I did my best to do the housework for my husband. My husband works for a major company, so even if I was a full-time housewife, he would still make enough money to make a living for the both of us. But I tried not to rest on my laurels financially and saved where I could. Thanks to that, we were able to save a reasonable amount of money each month. At this rate, I would be able to live without problems even if we had a baby. With this in mind, I devoted myself to supporting my husband as a full-time housewife. But then, 1 year into our marriage, my husband suddenly says something like this.
Millie, I want to test how hard I can work.
What?
I'm going to start a business with a guy with whom I respected when I was a student.
What? Starting a business? I was surprised. My husband chose to leave his previous job at a major company and chose to start a business.
Of course, I can expect to earn as much as, or even more than what I'm making now.
Oh, really?
Please, believe in me for this. I'll do my best.
My husband says so I decided to trust him. But it's not like we had any kids yet, so I decided to work during the weekdays while my husband was at work. I decided to work part-time to save some money at least. My husband has been working very hard since he started his business, but his income still decreased drastically. Working part-time wasn't enough, but I think it still adds up a little bit. My husband had his own thoughts about it, but he couldn't seem to stop me from working part-time because we had very little income.
I wanted you to just do the housework. I didn't think that even after a few months, I wouldn't be making so much money. I'm so sorry.
My husband, who always was positive, sounded negative this time. I gently smiled and encouraged my husband. Well, it's normal not to make much money at first, right? Besides, you have been earning a lot of money and protecting both our life up until now, so it's totally fine. From now on, we will take care of our lives together. I said that to him and decided to work more and more myself as well. However, simply increasing my working hours would be more hassle than just increasing my income. So, I decided to work from home. I used to work as an illustrator, so I thought I could take on that work as a home-based freelancer. Then, I created a social networking account, checked out freelance websites, and applied for jobs. Then, little by little, I began to receive job offers. At first, the money I earned were all low, but even so, as I did more and more jobs, the number of jobs kept increasing. And as I got more jobs, my earnings were going up, and before I knew it, my income was up to about $2,000 a month. Once that happened, I felt at ease. Although I was strong in front of my husband like that, there was a big part of me that was anxious. So I am really happy that my own income has increased.
Thank you, Millie. Thanks to you earning money like that, I am able to do what I love. I'm going to make the company a success. I'm going to make it easy for you.
Yes, thank you. As for my husband's company, it's not just his problem because he is co-managing it with someone he is starting a business with. Besides, it must be quite a challenge to make the business successful. I decided to wait patiently and continue to grow my own business. But then something unexpected happened. One day I received a call that Jane had fallen down the stairs and hurt her back. My mother-in-law lost her husband several years ago, and since then she has been living alone at her house. And since then, it has been very difficult for her to take care of herself when she has a back injury.
She can't even lift any heavy things, so It must be really difficult for her.
My husband said anxiously. Yes, that's true.
But it's not like we can live together with her.
My husband looked a little uncomfortable. He knows that I don't have a good relationship with my mother-in-law. But as for my husband, he is also worried about his own mother. For some reason, my mother-in-law ignored me when we first went to Crete to get married. I thought it was my imagination, but she seemed very uninterested when my husband talked about me. So I thought that she must not like me very much. Then we went to my parents-in-law's house regularly, but every time we went, my mother-in-law's attitude toward me was cold. My husband somehow sensed this too, and he told me,
"You don't have to come home with me whenever I need to go back there."
After that, I stopped visiting my parents-in-law's house that much. Because of that, I hardly had anything to do with my mother-in-law anymore. I'm sure that my husband would like to live with my mother-in-law, even for a short period of time if possible, because she is in a difficult situation being left alone, all by herself. However, he is aware of my relationship with her, so it is difficult for him to say so himself. If it's only for a short period of time, we can take care of her. When I said that, my husband said,
Really?
And he looked happy. I had not been in that much contact with my mother-in-law for a while, so her attitude toward me might have changed. And besides, I want my husband to focus his attention on his work as much as possible, so that's why I proposed that idea to Josh. Then my mother-in-law immediately came over to our house. It was as if she had been waiting for us. I was a little surprised at that, but well, considering how difficult the daily chores were, she probably wanted to come right away. And from then on, our life together started. My mother-in-law greeted me politely, and I thought that this would be alright. But that thought didn't last long. When it was just me and my mother-in-law at home during the daytime on weekdays, her attitude towards me immediately changed.
You're so lucky to live a slow and easy life, being a full-time housewife, aren't you? If you're not busy, massage my shoulders.
I don't have a slow and easy life. I'm always busy and my daily schedule is never slow. In the morning, I make my husband's lunch for breakfast, do laundry, and lightly clean my room. Then, I have to get to work. All I did was make a cafe au lait to drink for work before I started to work. I don't want anyone to say that I'm taking it easy and that I have a slow life. But my mother-in-law didn't care about that and started saying things like that to me.
You're just a really terrible wife who depends on Josh's earnings, but does whatever you want. Is that how you've been neglecting your housework? I feel sorry for Josh, my goodness.
My mother-in-law has been saying things like that, treating me like a bad person. I laughed bitterly and pretended I didn't hear that. I went to my room saying, I have some tea cakes ready for you, so please eat them whenever you'd like. My mother-in-law loves sweets, so serving her tea cakes would put her in a slightly better mood. In the meantime, I went into my room and got to work. I lost a little bit of time because of my mother-in-law. I concentrated on trying to make up for the delay. Then, after maybe an hour or so, Jane called for me and told me to go to the tea room. Jane called for me to ask me to make tea. Could you at least make the tea yourself? I'm working in my room. When I said that, my mother-in-law's eyes widened.
Huh? What are you lying about? You are a housewife, right? You're home all the time, but you don't work, do you?
No, actually I work from home.
Are you trying to tell me that you work remotely?
Yes, I do.
You're still a liar.
Excuse me?
That's a term for a company employee who works from home. But you're not, are you? You're not a company employee who gets a job from the company, so that proves that you are just playing around on your computer.
Jane did not understand me, even though I explained it to her properly that I was working from home. On the contrary, she became even harsher on me, treating me as a useless wife who challenged and went against her own mother-in-law. She abused me daily and even interfered with my work. She would come into my room without my permission and call me out repeatedly, which really got to me. During the day, I had to work while Jane wasn't looking at me. And then after finishing dinner, I had to work after she went to bed. But the next morning I had to make breakfast for the three of us and lunch for my husband. I was a wreck, both physically and mentally. My husband seemed to notice that I was having a hard time.
What's wrong? Are you busy with work? Is it hard to balance work with housework, or...
My husband was truly concerned and said such things to me, but it was hard for me to tell him that his mother was the cause. I didn't want to worry my husband unnecessarily and interfere with his work. But my husband told me he would take some time off.
Tomorrow and the day after are weekends, so skip the housework. I'll do what needs to be done.
I was really happy that my husband said that. I took his word for it and went to bed early and didn't get up early the next morning like I would usually. When I went to the living room, my husband was preparing breakfast for me. Wow, the scrambled eggs looks delicious.
The toast will be ready in a few minutes, so look forward to it.
Thanks. I was glad to be free from making breakfast for the first time in a while. But while I was relaxing on the living room sofa, Jane woke up and began to yell at me.
Hey, Millie, what are you doing? What kind of a plan is it to make Josh do the housework? A housewife shouldn't skip her own work.
My mother-in-law yelled at me, even though she was in front of her own son.
Hey, Mom, what are you doing?
Josh, you're being too nice, okay? She's going to get on you more and more if you keep on doing that. I mean, she's doing whatever she wants with your income, Josh. Instead, I'll make sure to teach her a thing or two.
And my mother-in-law came right up to me.
You're not worthy of being a wife who doesn't even do her own housework. You, of all people, should just get out of here.
My mother-in-law, who knew nothing, or rather didn't even try to know, began to say that to me. Actually, I am the one who is supporting this lifestyle. Then my husband turned to me and began to say this.
You can stop being my wife now.
What? I was perplexed by my husband's sudden remark. Jane was next to him, grinning at me.
Josh, that's good. You mean you're leaving this woman, right?
When my husband was told this by Jane, he immediately denied it, saying,
No, I'm not. If my wife's treated like this, I would feel really bad for Millie. That's why I'm thinking of becoming a son-in-law, being taken in by Millie's family.
What? Oh, Josh, what are you saying?
Mom, you're always picking on Millie like that, aren't you?
Oh, no,
At my husband's criticism, Jane got very upset, but tried to cover it up. Then my husband took something out of the drawer.
This is a voice recorder.
Excuse me?
Millie has been acting kind of strange for a while now, so I planted it in there. I haven't listened to it yet, but let's listen to the conversation between you and Millie.
I didn't know that my husband had planted a voice recorder. My mother-in-law didn't know that either, and she was once again very upset. And the audio contained a lot of my mother-in-law's abusive comments to me.
Mom, what's this all about?
Oh, well, that's...
I knew it. You were picking on my wife.
I wasn't doing...
The one who's leaving is you, Mom.
Excuse me?
I can't allow you to hurt my precious wife and make her suffer anymore like that. If your back hurts, call a helper or worse, go to a nursing home.
You're joking, right?
Besides, you might be mistaken about something, but Millie is making more money than me right now.
What?
My company hasn't been financially stable yet, so I'm only making about $800 a month. But Millie is making about $3,000 a month now from her work as an illustrator. It was Millie who was supporting our life. Did you know that, Mom?
What? No way!
My mother-in-law was immensely shocked by my husband's words.
Millie, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't know.
What are you saying? I explained this to you over and over again, didn't I? And yet, you just didn't listen to me. It's too late to apologize now. I can't live with you anymore, Jane.
Mom, I can't let you stay here as long as Millie says this. You need to pack your things and leave.
My mother-in-law was completely pale when my husband told her so. She tried to continue and sit there somehow, but when she realized that there was nothing she could do, she finally gave up. After that, my mother-in-law went back to her house. For now, she had hired a helper to take care of her. But my husband said he would not go back to Jane's house anymore. But well, as expected, the statement that he was going to be the son-in-law and be taken into our family was something he said in a spur-of-the-moment kind of thing at that time. Still, I was very glad that he was on my side. About 6 months later, my husband's company began to finally take off. His income jumped to more than the double of what I make per month.
It took a long time, but I can make things easier for you from now on, Millie. I'm really grateful for you for being by my side. I can't wait to live the future with you.
Me too, honey. I thought that with my husband, I would be able to spend happy days together in the future. I wonder what fun it is to be the one bullying the wife. I think that Josh running out of patience with Jane is what she deserves. I think it is only when you are alone that you realize how bad your character is. I am glad that Millie's husband was on her side. I hope Millie and Josh will continue to live happily as a loving couple. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.